Public Affairs very much thanks Residco, our sole corporate underwriter, for helping to make the production of this show possible.
I asked Senator Duckworth this. I said, do you agree with Vice President Kamala Harris that the border is secure? Or do you agree that there is a humanitarian crisis? We see it with our own eyes. She wouldn't answer that question.
She wouldn't answer. Maybe she wants to come here and we can have an informal discussion. Senator Duckworth, Kathy Salvi running for the Senate, her opponent. Would you like that, Kathy?
So I'll engage her anytime she will. She has failed Illinois. On our economy, she's failed Illinois. She's failed Illinois in inflation. She's failed Illinois in supply chain shortages. She's failed Illinois and its people on the cost of gas and the cost of groceries.
Welcome to Public Affairs. Let's start right there with the economy. A 40-year high in inflation. Tell me, if you do get elected to the U.S. Senate, what would you do that's not being done now that may not, that cures in the short run and the long run what's now an 8.6% consumer price index?
I ask people all over, what do you go to sleep worried about? Was your life better 2 years ago? And remember, we were just coming off of the 2-year COVID shutdown, and so people were suffering. And yet, look at where we are today. The economy is in the tank. Businesses are closing. People are overtaxed. Businesses are overregulated. And people are fleeing from our state. This is a tragedy. And I think it's all squarely on the back of single-party failed leadership here in Illinois.
Illinois? Or the United States?
Well, look at Springfield and look at Washington. We have a president in the White House, President Biden, who signs at his desk legislation, and we have almost an absent Congress who let him get away with it. Tammy Duckworth votes nearly 100% of the time with the failed Joe Biden agenda, and this is why I will be elected this November.
What are the most important things that Tammy Duckworth voted for that Biden did that brought us, if you think it did bring us, to 8.6% consumer price index, 40-year high inflation? What caused that?
Well, two things. First of all, our entire economy is driven by energy, right? Energy independence is what we had 2 years ago. And since day one of his administration, President Biden, he cut off the Keystone Pipeline. He's made it nearly impossible to drill on federal lands for oil. We have a non-existent coal economy here in Illinois when we're rich with coal. We have a natural gas, which is a fossil fuel, but it's clean. We are the Saudi Arabia of natural gas in our country. And even Europe is begging us to send it over there so that they don't have to rely on foreign oil, particularly from Russia. And what have we done? We've now, in 2 years' time, because of Biden and his adherence to a radical environmental agenda, and this is seconded and signed off on, rubber stamped by Tammy Duckworth, we are no longer energy independent, but rather energy dependent.
So would you develop all of those things? Is there anything you wouldn't? You would do oil, you'd do gas, natural gas, you'd do recyclables, whatever we call it, renewables. You would do solar, you would do wind. Is there anything you wouldn't do that would expand the total energy production of the United States?
So we have to, I would stand and support an all of the above energy policy. Of course, we have to continue to develop and innovate in the area of the renewables, but our entire economy, only 12 to 15% is run on renewable energy, and we do not have the electrical grid to support EVs, and they're unaffordable for the vast majority of Illinoisans. So I think we need an all of the above energy policy, which would incorporate drilling for oil, clean coal, nuclear energy. You know, 2 years ago, we were a 40% net nuclear power exporter here in Illinois, and now we're a 40% nuclear power importer. And there are several coal-driven electrical plants in our state anticipated to shut down. Well, this is only going to spell more trouble in the future. As Bill Graff in Logan County shared with me, and he's a farmer, he said he had to pay from December through the spring an unbudgeted $25,000 additional dollars in his diesel oil costs, and that has not even seen its way to the market.
So where does your opponent, the junior senator from the state of Illinois, Tammy Duckworth, how does she differ on what you've outlined would be your energy platform?
Well, she's silent. She has not supported. She supports the progressive leftist agenda, the Green New Deal, which arguably doesn't not only does it make our economy not competitive, but it's arguably not even making our environment cleaner. You can't expect, and she is silent. She adheres to that policy hook, line, and sinker.
Does she follow the party line, the Democratic Party line, the Biden party line? Does she follow that completely, or does she ever say, here's where I differ from the Democratic Party?
Joe Biden has become the most Democrat socialist president that I think we've had in our history, and his policies are bad for America. And Tammy Duckworth is a rubber stamp to that policy. She's right in line with it, and I think that's bad for Illinois.
Did the country spend too much on so-called COVID spending and relief and recovery? Was it trillions of dollars, $5-6 trillion? Did Tammy Duckworth support Biden on all of that?
I'm glad you brought that up, because there's two reasons that our economy here in Illinois and in America is in the tank, and the second reason is the failed American Recovery Act, which was passed in March of 2021. That allowed for the printing and spending of $1.9 trillion. And most of that is not accounted for. And I think that what Illinois deserves, what we need here, is a check and a balance on the arbitrary power of President Biden in promoting an agenda that is bad for Illinois and bad for America. And I'll provide that. But when you have both the White House and the Congress and under the power of the same party, it has been a train wreck for us.
So you think if the people of the state of Illinois were to send you to Washington to be their senator, would you be overseeing the fiscal policy, even the monetary policy of the Federal Reserve? Are those things necessary, that kind of congressional oversight, to avoid the kind of runaway inflation we've had and cure it in the future?
Right now, the Congress and the Senate, House and the Senate are under Democrat control, and they essentially allow the golden pen of the president at his Oval Office to sign certain measures by executive order into law, and they are not a check and balance. And I will be a check and balance to that arbitrariness and that power. And Tammy Duckworth, I think that if a person is going to run for re-election, they should have a record of achievement, and they should be elected based on
You don't think it's there
merit.
for Tammy?
Oh, absolutely.
You respect her service, heroic service in the military, but you can do that and still differ dramatically with her on her policies?
I think many of us in Illinois looked at her open-mindedly back 10 years ago and expected a promise given her service, but we have seen anything but courage in her legislative role. And to be silent and sit on the Armed Services Committee when, for example, that botched Afghanistan withdrawal that we all watched on television in August of 2021, it was an embarrassment. And what it did was it emboldened our enemies and showed that we lack the resolve to support, to lead. And the indecisive leadership and the reckless abandonment of the Afghani people after we made a 20-plus year a commitment to them also showed our allies that we cannot be counted upon, and that we can't be counted upon or trusted. And Tammy Duckworth sits on the Armed Services Committee. We heard nothing from her. So when I talk about failed leadership by Tammy Duckworth, we can expect, and I expect I will be that check and balance that we so need in Illinois.
On foreign policy, has she made it clear she's a big supporter of the government of the U.S. in defending or helping the Ukraine defend itself? Has she made that clear enough? Would you agree with her? Would you have done the same thing? Or would you have done anything differently than the federal government did, than Biden did, than Duckworth did on Ukraine?
I'll tell you, the people of Illinois will in electing me, find the hardest working U.S. senator that they have found in my adult lifetime, at least. And this is what I promise to the American people and to particularly the families of people of Illinois. And as to Ukraine, I believe that the botched Afghanistan withdrawal, which embarrassed our country, and the indecisive leadership of President Biden, the silence of Tammy Duckworth, set the stage for what happened in the Ukraine. Realize that for many months, the Vladimir Putin was assembling troops on the border of the Ukraine. We saw what was happening, and it would have been appropriate to have tough sanctions placed upon Russia during that period of time as the war prior to an invasion. Because nothing was done, and we heard crickets from Tammy Duckworth, the invasion of the Ukraine, which occurred this past February, was nearly inevitable. Remember also—
Excuse me, would you have sent, if you had been the senator at that time, would you have said to the president, you think that we shouldn't be waiting, we're seeing this build up, go ahead and start getting arms so that the Ukrainians can defend themselves? Would you have supported those expenditures, those efforts? Would you have said to the president, if you got a chance to talk to him, just what I just said, do it now, don't wait?
So here's a couple things. Vigorous and strong sanctions would have helped, but when President Biden waged war on domestically produced oil, it caused our country and its leadership, President Biden, to have to go, and other countries that rely on our exportation of natural gas, like Europe, it required them to have to go to rogue nations in order to beg for oil. At the very beginning of his administration, the president opened up and agreed to the second pipeline, which Russia was creating in the Baltic region. And by opening up that pipeline to Germany, Germany then and now Europe is dependent on Russian oil. Well, that has enriched the Russian coffers.
What could you have done as a senator to get the U.S. government to act differently, to do something about that pipeline?
Well, we cannot make Europe dependent on Russian oil. It was a mistake. It was bad policy, and Tammy Duckworth was silent to that. So I would say, if you look at the past administration, there were no overtakes of government. You look what happened during Obama. We had Russia overtook the Crimea, and here in the last administration, there were no overtaking of countries by threatening powers either. Russia, they were kept at bay. I believe that the indecisive leadership from President Biden and Duckworth's silence, as she said on the Armed Service Committee, set the stage for that invasion. And if you recall the words of President Biden in January, that a small incursion of Russia into the Ukraine would be acceptable, I don't have his exact words. That was reckless. And
so has China been watching all of this? Did they watch the reluctance of the United States to get involved as that buildup occurred? Is China thinking, I wonder how strong will the United States be to defend Taiwan? Maybe we should take a crack at taking over Taiwan. Do you think that's what's going on in Premier Xi's mind at the moment?
I think that America is the defender and promoter of freedom throughout the world. And I believe in what President Reagan believed, that we need peace through strength. And the messaging and the actions of this president and this Congress have projected a far different America than any one of us could ever have imagined. And so I believe as the U.S. Senator, I will definitely ask the questions that needed to be asked and get the answers that need to be gathered.
Did Senator Duckworth do that as a senator? Nobody's questioning her tremendous and heroic efforts when she was in the military, but as a U.S. Senator, did she ask those tough questions?
Tammy Duckworth does not deserve re-election here in Illinois based upon the record and based upon her silence. She's nearly a 100% rubber stamp for the Joe Biden failed agenda, and I believe this is why I will be elected this coming November.
So you mentioned crime, switching over from foreign policy to street crime. People may wonder, because that's what's on their mind. Here in Chicago, here in Cook County, perhaps in East St. Louis, perhaps in Decatur, the inner city areas, especially around the state of Illinois, crime has just gone completely haywire. But let's focus on Chicago and Cook County for a moment. You'll be the senator from the entire state and maybe similar areas. Is there a Chicago crime cabal and Cook County crime cabal that's fostering this sharp increase in street crime?
I believe that if you asked anybody, do you feel safer now in your home, in your community? They'd say absolutely, without question, no. And
what's causing that? Why aren't they safer?
To show how out of touch Tammy Duckworth is, she recently endorsed Lori Lightfoot for mayor and Kim Foxx. And both Lori Lightfoot and Kim Foxx have failed to keep Cook County and the city of Chicago safe for its residents and
what would you tell?
business.
What would you tell if you had Kim Foxx right here? What would you tell Kim Foxx to do that she's not doing now?
So prosecute. We have to back our police, our law enforcement, but Tammy Duckworth and her votes have not backed law enforcement. She, in her votes and in her advocacy, she might say that she supports strong law enforcement, but I received the unanimous endorsement of the Fraternal Order of Police. And the police and Sheriff's Association, I've talked to so many people, have indicated that what they learned in the academy and what they see on the street, their hands are tied.
So you know the law. What was it? How long ago? 3 decades. 3 decades of practice. When you were a public defender, you got applauded, so I understand, for your trial work there in defending the accused. So you know your way around a courtroom. Do you know about Chief Judge Evans? Is he doing anything? He's the Chief Judge in Circuit Court of Cook County. Is he doing anything in conjunction with Preckwinkle, in conjunction with Fox, to make street crime worse?
Just look at our communities. Look at the escalated crime we have in the city of Chicago. And now with the Safety Act that's due to go into effect on January 1st of 2023, this is just tragic. It's going to export lawlessness throughout our state. And people are really concerned about this. You don't have to be a Republican, Democrat, Independent. All people of goodwill are hurting. So, and what is causing it? Because we have a prosecutor in Kim Foxx she's more concerned with the victims' rights and letting violent criminals out and not charging them, and judges who support that than they are in prosecuting people. And what is happening is it's causing people on the street in our communities to die and to be maimed and injured. Look, all you need to do is look at the...
So what can you do as a U.S. Senator, because you're in the federal role,
right.
As a U.S. Senator, do you have any levers to address the problems you've just been discussing?
Well, I know that there was a vote that Tammy took that she voted against allowing additional funding to prosecutors in order to prosecute and to maintain violent criminals behind bars, and she voted against it. You see, one thing I see with her votes is that she does it purely on a party line. It's not even a moderate Democrat position. She answers to the far progressive left of her party, and that is not Illinois. She is I want to be an Illinois senator, responding to the people and the families and the businesses here. I love our state, and that's just not words. I'm a 5th-generation Illinoisan, first of 9 kids, raised in Waukegan, Illinois. And I've lived in, Waukegan is a small Chicago. It's like a melting pot. And I can say that my entire life's experience and my advocacy as an attorney, and both that and also being a mom of 6 kids and being a working mom, has prepared me for this moment.
So as a mom, as a trial lawyer of some renown,
right.
As Teddy Roosevelt might have talked of the bully pulpit, do you, as a U.S. Senator, have a bully pulpit to address these problems of street crime that many people say are local? Could you and would you use that bully pulpit to talk about that?
I will use every bit of persuasion I can to repeal the Safety Act, which is due to go into effect on January 1st of 2023. We need law enforcement to do their job.
It says safety, isn't it? It's not making people safer? It's a misnomer?
Yeah, what is... I can't recall what SAFE T stands for, but I know that.
No, I've never understood
I'd have
myself.
to look at it, but it's definitely not to make our streets and our families and our communities safer. It's the opposite of that. In fact, the good sheriff of DuPage County has indicated he's going to have to do citizen training in order to help citizens be able to prepare to protect themselves.
So similar, maybe misnomer, we hear the president say the borders are secure, the southern border is secure. Is that a flat, because people say when there's a lie, the media are supposed to, fact check. Is it a lie when Biden says, and his cabinet and all the folks that deal with the border, they all say the border is secure, there's no problem. Kathy Salvi, running for the U.S. Senate from the state of Illinois, is there a problem with the southern border?
Absolutely. We have a porous border. It's a humanitarian nightmare, a crisis that's occurring there. And up till now, about 3 million undocumented illegal border crossers have come into the United States, and they're being processed into different communities throughout our country. There is an uptick in human trafficking and in fentanyl. Fentanyl, which is produced in China. Last year alone, 100,000 people in our country died from fentanyl-laced drugs. I recall meeting not too long ago a nurse from Hamilton County who said that she has seen fentanyl death in her own hospital, and that's a small community right on the Mississippi River. So it touches everybody.
I don't get it. You tell me. You've been with Senator Duckworth from time to time. Yes. Seems like a nice enough person. I knew her when she was running in the 6th Congressional District and lost to somebody Peter Roskam. So seemed nice enough. I haven't talked to her a lot lately. You're telling me she just doesn't care about fentanyl? She doesn't care about kids in Illinois dying? That seems hard to believe.
Well, I believe in life. If you get the good information in, you'll get better results out. But Senator Duckworth obviously listens to a certain far left voice in her party. And even if good legislation comes to her, if it's sponsored by a Republican, she will vote against it. Well, this is exactly the problem we have in Congress. And I think people on both sides of the aisle, they have a mistrust for one another. Well, in my advocacy, if there's a bill that's good for Illinois and it happens to be a Democrat-sponsored bill, I'll listen. And I'll work to make it work if it's good for the people of Illinois. And if it's there's just too much polarization and partisanship. So as to the border, let's look at that for a moment.
2 million people, I think the last fiscal year, 2.1 million people, illegal encounters.
Yes.
That means they came across, they were stopped, but then they were sent on their way. A court date was given. When Trump was there, these asylum waiters were waiting outside the U.S.
That's right.
Now the Biden policy, bring them in and send them around the country, and yet they're upset. They're upset when somebody flies them to Martha's Vineyard. I mean, where Obama is, and they get 50 illegal immigrants there, and they use the National Guard to remove them.
Isn't
that kind of hypocritical?
I asked Senator Duckworth this. I said, do you agree with Vice President Kamala Harris that the border is secure? Or do you agree that there is a humanitarian crisis? We see it with our own eyes. She wouldn't answer that question.
She wouldn't answer.
Last night in the debate that I attended, she blamed Putin and oil companies for the high price of gasoline. And in her commercial, I think she blames oil companies. But let me ask you this. How about 2 years ago when they were, down nearly 75% what they are now, when they were hovering. I think the price of gas in Illinois today was $4.17 a gallon, which is 37 cents higher than the national average. Well, how about 2 years ago when it was about $2.20? Were the oil companies just being generous back then?
They weren't gouging then,
I know. So as to kids' education, do you know just in Lake County, my own county, that black children at the 3rd grade level, 89% of them failed the 3rd grade reading test.
Right.
And you can't say that we're not throwing enough money at our educational system,
right.
But why are our children being failed in the classroom? Why is it that our children are passing from grade to grade to grade, and then they go on to apply for college, and they they can't even on their entrance exams be admitted. And there's a lot of our colleges, and I know this is happening at College of Lake County. I'm a big fan of junior education. Many students who want to take college level courses have to go through remedial courses to be able to even test.
So why is that happening?
Well,
because you may have seen recently in Chicago, CPS, Chicago Public Schools, they're spending $29,000 per kid per year when you count all the costs. $29,000, as you say, it may be comparable in Lake County and other areas around the state of Illinois. WirePoints has looked at a number of cities, and on average, it's like 38% for everybody reading at grade level or performing on reading and math. So this is a statewide problem.
It is.
It's much worse for minorities, for blacks and Hispanics. And we referred to these numbers like 15%. In Decatur, in some areas, they have like 1 or 2%. And so why is that happening?
So President Biden...
And what can you do about it as a U.S. Senator?
Well, President Biden and his rubber-stamped Senator Duckworth answer to educational bureaucrats. They don't answer to the parents. Parents deserve to be in the driver's seat. And what I'm really encouraged about after this strict 2-year COVID lockdown is parents are becoming active and involved. We heard about them last fall called domestic terrorists. Why? Because they're concerned about what their kids are learning in the classroom and they're coming to school board meetings. I'm so encouraged by the number of great moms and dads, and even folks who aren't moms and dads but are truly concerned about our children.
So you're saying parents should have more control of the curriculum?
And they are. And they're becoming, now they're running for school board. We're going to see a tremendous number of parents who are active, who've never been active, because parents entrust their children to be taught the basics of reading, writing, arithmetic, science, real history. And they saw during the COVID shutdown that the children are being shortchanged, and they see the results. Many young boys and girls, and they're being passed along to the next age, but without having the basics of education.
Is this another bully pulpit for you? We mentioned the bully pulpit and the issues of crime. Would you have a bully pulpit to address education? Would you support and be an advocate for more school choice, more charter schools, more private schools, that people could take their money from a failing school and go to the school of their choice? Would you support that?
I've always believed, where it's been tried in the pilot program, it enriches the education, because competition is good within the public school system.
Where is Tammy Duckworth on all this, on education?
Well,
does she support? You said competition is good. Does she think competition is good for schools?
Well, she's a big government gal. She believes that father government should impose its will, and her votes support this. She votes along with Joe Biden. Joe Biden is wedded to the progressive left of the Democrat Party. He's not even in line with moderate Democrats, which is why I have built a coalition of supporters in my case, not only a united Republican Party and a united Republican base, but also a coalition of independent voters and open-minded Democrats who see that the direction of our state is the wrong way, and they want to give me an opportunity to serve their voice. And I think this is why I will be successful in November.
You come back to public affairs next week and every week.